Hello, I'm Reverend Kenny Callahan, the pastor at Metropolitan Community Church of Richmond. The sacred text for this Sunday service is taken from Matthew's story, the 14th chapter, verses 22 to 33. The story of Jesus walking on water and Peter's fear. Peter doesn't begin to sink into the ocean because he takes his eyes off of Jesus, but rather because Peter loses confidence and becomes afraid. The truth is, Peter's fear is justified. The disciples find themselves stuck in the middle of a raging, powerful storm strong enough to sink their ship. It seems to me that Peter has very good reason to be afraid. Fear can be debilitating. It sneaks up on us, paralyzes us, and makes it difficult to move forward at all, let alone with confidence. Fear is one of the primary things that robs us of living in the freedom and the love that God intends for each and every one of us. The promise at the heart of our faith is that God will never ever give up on us, that God is always with us and for us, and that God will do what we cannot do for ourselves. God's promise is the one thing I know that helps us cope with and combat fear. Notice I said combat fear, not defeat fear. Fear is a part of our lives, and we can be confident that God understands our fears. It is important to also not equate fear with failure or faithlessness. After all, courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to take our stand and do what needs to be done even when we're afraid. But even the promise of comfort, of courage and presence doesn't quite drain the potential of this story. Because all of that is part of God's larger promise and vision of what we might be, of the persons that God sees us as and calls us to be, of the hopes and dreams that God has for us as individuals and as a spiritual community. I think that is the something more that many people are struggling to discover and find in life. The belief that their story isn't over, that there is more to life than they have experienced, and that the past doesn't determine the future, that their faults and failings don't disqualify them from love and acceptance and hope. When the disciples are terrified, Jesus says to them, "Don't worry, don't be afraid." And when Peter begins to sink and yells out to be saved, Jesus reaches out and grabs him. Jesus' actions remind us of our need for God and that God will always respond. Just as Jesus reassures the disciples and reaches out to grab hold of Peter, God also responds to us with compassion and support because God is eager to respond to our needs and invites us to live adventuresome lives of faith and a blessing. So the question isn't whether we're caught in a storm or whether we have enough faith to walk on water. The question is whether we can dare great things, trusting that Jesus will reach out and grab hold of us no matter what.